Good evening. According to a new announcement by Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who is the director of the CDC, the effectiveness of vaccines has been declining, specifically among people who received them early on. And after citing 3 new research studies, both herself as well as other federal government officials, they are now recommending that Americans receive vaccine booster shots. Meanwhile, a university over in Connecticut, they're getting creative in the way that they're trying to get their students vaccinated. They are now issuing fines to their students of up to $2,000, and they are blocking the internet access if the students fail to get vaccinated. However, these types of tactics are not only being seen on college campuses. That's because 2 days ago, right here in New York City, a vaccine mandate has gone into effect. You must now show your card in order to eat at a restaurant, go to a gym, or take in a show. And disproportionately, this is affecting Black New Yorkers the most. Let's go through it all together. This is your daily Facts Matter update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. And now let's begin today's discussion by talking about the vaccine, specifically about its declining effectiveness in fighting against the Delta variant. That's right, just yesterday, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who is again the director of the CDC, she said that according to data from 3 different reports, it shows that the efficacy of the COVID vaccine has dropped among individuals who received the shots earlier on. Specifically, she cited 3 studies that were released in the Morbidity and Mortality Report, which is a weekly report put out by the CDC. And according to Dr. Walensky, she said that even though protection against death and hospitalization is holding up well, the vaccine's effectiveness is what she called waning in preventing both serious illness as well as death. Basically, she said that the vaccine's efficacy decreases over time in preventing infections. Here's specifically what she said during her speech. Even though our vaccines are currently working well to prevent hospitalizations, we are seeing concerning evidence of waning vaccine effectiveness over time and against the Delta variant. Now, the 2 most widely used vaccines here in the US are the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, which were pegged at being 95% and 94% effective, respectively, when they were first granted emergency use authorization back in December of 2020. However, the 3 studies that Dr. Walensky cited showed that the efficacy of these vaccines has decreased significantly. Let's go through them together. And so the first study which she cited, it was conducted by researchers at the CDC's COVID response team alongside the Lantana Consulting Group. And it found that the efficacy of both of the vaccines, the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, in protecting against infection has dropped to only 53.1%. Specifically, what this study discovered is that 2 doses of either vaccine was about 75% effective in preventing nursing home residents from getting infected between the months of March and May. However, during June and July, that number dropped by 22%, all the way down to 53.1%. Here's what researchers in this report wrote as part of their conclusion. Quote, because nursing home residents might remain at some risk for SARS-CoV-2 infection despite vaccination, multiple COVID prevention strategies, including infection control, testing, and vaccination of nursing home staff members, residents, and visitors, are critical. An additional dose of COVID vaccine might be considered for nursing home and long-term care facility residents to optimize a protective immune response. Now, the second study, which was cited by Dr. Walensky, it was a joint study conducted by researchers over with the New York State Department of Health alongside the University at Albany School of Public Health. And what they did is that they analyzed the vaccine effectiveness here in New York City between May 3rd and July 25th, and they adjusted it for age. And what they found was that the effectiveness of the vaccines in preventing infection in adults has dropped to about 79.8%. That was infections. But when discussing hospitalizations, they found that the vaccines were actually holding up better. In fact, according to this study, it showed that vaccine effectiveness in preventing hospitalization ranged between 91.9% and 95.3%. Here's specifically what this paper said on that front. Quote, the factors driving the apparent changes in vaccine effectiveness, including variations by age, are uncertain. These findings support a multi-pronged approach to reducing new COVID-19 hospitalizations and cases centered on vaccination and including other approaches such as masking and physical distancing. Now, lastly, the third study that was cited by Dr. Walensky, it was conducted by researchers from the University of Iowa, Washington University, as well as the University of Michigan. And this study, it evaluated 1,121 fully vaccinated patients from 21 different hospitals across 18 different states. And this study found that the effectiveness of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, specifically against hospitalization, has declined to 84% for people who got the vaccine 13 to 24 weeks ago. Now, of course, those studies were conducted based on different sample groups, different methodologies, and they all came to different results. However, they do all show a decline in the efficacy of these two vaccines, specifically in regards to preventing infection. And because of that, 2 days ago, there was a joint statement released from the CDC, the NIH, the FDA, as well as the Surgeon General, which said this in part. The available data make very clear that protection against SARS-CoV-2 infection begins to decrease over time following the initial doses of vaccination. And in association with the dominance of the Delta variant, we are starting to see evidence of reduced protection against mild and moderate disease. Now, that statement then goes on to say that because of this new data, federal officials are now recommending that people get booster shots 8 months after they've been fully vaccinated with either the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. Here's what that statement says in that regard. Based on our latest assessment, the current protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and death could diminish in the months ahead, especially among those who are at higher risk or were vaccinated during the earlier phases of the vaccination rollout. For that reason, we conclude that a booster shot will be needed to maximize vaccine-induced protection and prolong its durability. Now, as to when specifically these new booster shots will be rolled out and made available, well, here's what Dr. Rochelle Walensky said during her speech. We're planning for Americans to receive booster shots starting next month. And indeed, it looks like booster shots of both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines will likely be distributed starting on the week of September the 20th. However, outside scientists are criticizing this move and expressing concerns about how this could actually inhibit efforts to get vaccines over to developing countries. For instance, Dr. Moog Sevik, who is an infectious disease expert over at the University of St. Andrews, he wrote this in response to these booster shots. I'm truly disappointed. This decision is not justifiable at all looking at this data. We are going to use up millions of doses to reduce the small risk of mild infections in fully protected people with a tiny risk of hospitalization while most of the world waits for a first dose. Now, it's also worth noting that with the federal government now pushing booster shots, vaccine manufacturers are poised to make billions of dollars in annual sales. In fact, analysts and investors in these vaccine manufacturing companies are saying that booster shots can open up a new market that is comparable to the $6 billion in annual sales that these companies typically make from the flu vaccine. According to Reuters, Pfizer, its German partner BioNTech, and Moderna have together locked in over $60 billion in sales of their respective COVID vaccines through the year 2022, which includes both the initial doses as well as the booster shots. Now, in terms of revenue predictions, analysts that were cited over in that Reuters article, they predicted revenues of over $6.6 billion for the Pfizer and BioNTech alliance and $7.6 billion for Moderna, with those numbers chiefly coming from booster shots. They also said that after this initial phase, in terms of the long-term horizon, they predict that the market will eventually stabilize at around $5 billion a year in annual revenues for these companies coming from booster shots. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we actually reached out to both Pfizer and Moderna for comment, and while Moderna did not get back to us, a spokesperson for Pfizer did. He said that the only forecast that the company can provide us with are their 2021 projections, which show that they will make approximately $33.5 billion in revenue from their COVID vaccines. And even though Moderna did not get back to us with a comment, last week, the president of Moderna had an interview where he said this. At some point, this will become a more traditional market. We'll look at what are the populations at risk, what value are we creating, and what are the number of products that serve that value. That will ultimately impact price. Now, if you would like to read through these 3 studies for yourself, or if you would like to read that full statement from the CDC director, I'll throw all those links into the description box below this video for you to check out. And now, before we move on over and discuss how a university out in Connecticut is issuing fines as well as preventing unvaccinated students from accessing the internet, I would like to take a quick moment and introduce our sponsor for today's episode, and I will do so from the sound booth. That's right, Roman. Although today we're not in the sound booth, we're in a living room looking area. In fact, take a look at this. So this right here is what's known as a US dollar. And in my opinion, with the way that the government is acting right now, printing these things into oblivion, unfortunately, within probably 1 generation, this is just my opinion, I don't give any financial advice, but this likely will not be the world's reserve currency any longer. Which is why every single month what I do is I get one of these boxes delivered to me from American Hartford Gold. And American Hartford Gold is a phenomenal gold dealer. They don't only sponsor my channel, they're one of my favorite gold dealers to work with. And every single month, I buy gold and silver from them because I believe that it had value 5,000 years ago, it has value today, and it'll likely have value well into the future. And take a look at these beautiful pieces that they send me. You got these beautiful 1 ounce silver American Walking Liberties here. And then you have this beautiful 1 ounce Canadian maple. I don't know if you can see how shiny that is. It's beautiful. Yeah, and right, if you order from American Hartford Gold, they have a special going on for our watchers, for our viewers. If depending on how much you buy, they'll send you $1,500 worth of free silver, and on top of that, they'll send you a very special gift right here. I'll take a look and show you what it is. By the way, American Hartford Gold, they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They're super friendly and nice to work with. When you call them, not only are their staff friendly, but if they put you on hold, their hold music is a speech from Ronald Reagan, so I never even mind when I have to hold it a little bit. And yeah, they're just awesome. They can send you physical gold and silver to your doorstep, or they can deposit it directly into your IRA account, making the whole thing super simple. And not only will they send you for silver, they'll also send you this hat, which has written on it everything you need to survive a crisis: God, gold, and guns. So claim your $1,500 worth of free silver and your free hat. You can click on the link in the description box below, or give them a call at 866-242-2352, or text Roman to 65532. Now, Roman in the studio, back to you. Now, while we are on the topic of vaccines, let's discuss some of the vaccine mandates which are being levied across the country. And let's start over in Connecticut, where a university is getting, you can say, creative with how they're trying to get their students vaccinated. Now, Quinnipiac University, which is in Connecticut, they are fining their students up to $2,275, and they are blocking them from using the internet if they fail to get vaccinated. Let me just repeat that. They are fining their students potentially up to $2,000, and they're cutting off their internet access if they remain unvaccinated. Now, Quinnipiac University is a private liberal arts college over in New Haven, and 3 days ago, they sent an email to about 600 of their students who have yet to show proof of vaccination. Now, we here at the Epoch Times were actually able to get a copy of that email, and here's what it said in part. We wish we did not have to take these measures, but protecting the health of our Quinnipiac University community by ensuring compliance with our vaccination requirement is the only way we can ease most of our COVID-related restrictions and safely return to our in-person learning and living activities. The email then goes on to say that those who are not compliant will begin to face a $100 weekly fine, which increases by $25 every 2 weeks. Furthermore, the non-compliant students will also not have access to either the school's campus network or their Wi-Fi. Now, they do provide certain exemptions, like medical exemptions. However, for those students, if they qualify for those exemptions, they will need to undergo weekly COVID testing. And according to that email, if they miss a test, they will be fined $100. And Quinnipiac is now the first school in the U.S. to use financial incentives or financial disincentives to enforce their vaccination policies. There's also the case of Rhodes College, which is a private liberal arts school over in Memphis, Tennessee. And back in June, they announced that students must be vaccinated or pay a mandatory testing fee of $1,500. Here's part of a letter that was sent to the Rhodes College student body back in June. Upon returning to campus, non-vaccinated students will be charged a $1,500 per semester health safety fee to cover the cost of mandatory testing. Likewise, over in Wesleyan College, which is a private liberal arts school over in West Virginia, they announced just earlier this month that any unvaccinated student will be fined $750. They will have to wear a mask while indoors, they will have to undergo weekly testing, and they will have to maintain physical distance from the other students. If you would like to read more about these schools and their mandates, I'll throw all those links into the description box below this video for you to check out. However, it's worth noting that this type of situation is not only playing out on college campuses. Right here in New York City, where we filmed the show, vaccine mandates have gone into effect. 2 days ago, it became a requirement that you show proof of vaccination if you'd like to eat inside of a restaurant, watch indoor entertainment, or even go to a gym. And that's indeed the case. Right now, when you go to a restaurant, if you want to sit inside, they check your papers. There are also signs outside of stores when you walk around the city, and you'll see them, that say that people are checking your vaccination status if you would like to go inside. Here's what Mayor Bill de Blasio said on Tuesday when this policy went into effect. We do not want to go back to restrictions. The key to our progress is vaccination. And it's easy. All you have to do is show proof of vaccination. That could be a CDC paper card, that could be an Excelsior pass, an NYC COVID Safe app, whatever works. All you got to do is show that proof and have ID as well, and it's straightforward. Now, it's worth noting that this policy disproportionately affects Black New Yorkers, who are among the least vaccinated group in the city. In fact, there was a recent report published by the city's health department which showed that only 33% of Black New Yorkers are fully vaccinated, meaning essentially that 66% of Black New Yorkers are now not allowed to go to restaurants, gyms, or indoor entertainment. And it's exactly this type of disparity which has caused some business owners to criticize this mandate. For instance, here's what the owner of a local art gallery here in New York City, here's what he wrote on Twitter. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio just clarified that ID must also be shown along with proof of vaccination. So people need proper ID to be vaccinated. Matching ID must be shown each time to enter all restaurants, many other indoor venues in New York City. If voter ID laws are racist, then so is this. Now, just as an aside, doesn't have much to do with New York City, but there was a recent study conducted by Carnegie Mellon University, and it found that once you break it down by education levels, people who hold a PhD are the most vaccine hesitant, meaning that people who hold a PhD are the least likely to get vaccinated. Kind of unexpected. I thought I'd just throw that out there. Regardless, in terms of how this will all play out here in New York City, we'll just have to wait and see. There have already been protests staged outside of the mayor's mansion fighting back against these mandates. And for your reference, even though the policy is right now in effect as of 2 days ago, the city will not actually be enforcing it until September the 13th. Now is sort of a grace period where New York City businesses are supposed to set up their infrastructure for checking people's papers, and then a month from now, the government will crack down on the businesses if they don't. Let's see how it all plays out. If you would like to read more about what's happening here in New York City, I'll throw a link to an article that goes deeper into it into the description box below this video for you to check out. And all I ask in return is that you take a quick moment to smash that like button. Because honestly, it goes without saying that videos that are like this, talking frankly, transparently, and just factually about what's happening in this world, are routinely suppressed by the YouTube algorithm. However, when you smash that like button until it turns either black or blue, depending on which setting you have your YouTube set on, it forces the YouTube algorithm to share this video out to potentially thousands of more people, letting the truth be known far and wide. And now let's move on over and talk about the U.S. southern border. The official July apprehension numbers came in, and they are frankly very high. In fact, they're at a 21-year high. More than 212,000 people were apprehended at the U.S. southern border in the month of July, which is up 13% from the month of June, and it's again a 21-year record high. And just for your reference, records are not publicly available before the year 2000, and so maybe this is an all-time high and we just don't know. And this number, by the way, keep in mind something else. It does not include people who were either never detected by the U.S. Southern Border Patrol or who were detected but weren't apprehended. And so the number of people who actually crossed the U.S. Southern Border is much higher than 212,000. Now, about 6 days ago, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Mr. Alejandro Mayorkas, he went over to Brownsville, Texas, and he delivered a public speech wherein he downplayed the severity of the crisis. However, after his speech, leaked audio, which was obtained by Fox News, it revealed the Secretary's true feelings about what's happening on the southern border. And so let's do this. Let's compare what he said in public with what he said in private. So this is part of the speech that he gave in front of the cameras. We have seen surges in migration before. We have seen them in the past, and migration surges are not new. Just as we did with the challenge of unaccompanied children in March of this year, we have a plan. We are executing our plan, and that takes time. And so that's what he said in public. However, this is what he told Border Patrol agents in private. This is unsustainable. These numbers cannot continue. We cannot get to the point where we were a couple of weeks ago. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen. We're looking at policy options. If our borders are the first line of defense, we're going to lose, and this is unsustainable. We can't continue like this. Our people in the field can't continue, and our system isn't built for it. And then we wonder why the public at large is not taking the border crisis seriously. However, we here at the Epoch Times, we have had one of our best investigative reporters down on the ground at the U.S. southern border for the last several months now. And the types of footage that she has been able to get is really eye-opening. I frankly just wish more people in this country would see it for themselves so they can know what is happening down there at the U.S. southern border. If you would like to watch all the videos from her, you can do so by following Charlotte on Twitter. She posts them on there regularly. Now, in order to get a different perspective on the southern border, when I was down in Texas a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to sit down and interview Roger Williams. He's not only a Texas congressman, but he was also the Secretary of State under Governor Rick Perry. And he told us about what the southern border situation actually looks like and what can be done about it. Here's what he said.
I've been going to the border since 2005 when I was Secretary of State. I oversaw that issue for Governor Perry. And I was down there last week with President Trump. It's the worst I've ever seen it. You've got people that are coming through here illegally. They need to be coming through the ports of entry, not between the ports of entry. We've got an administration that is actually inviting them to come. And many of them think that they just touched the soil of the United States, they're citizens. The wall worked. We did the right thing putting the wall up. Now the wall is not being built. We know that. There's gaps in the wall. People are coming through the gaps. The Border Patrol is overwhelmed. We've taken our judges off the border to give these illegals their due process and send them back to Mexico. So what we need to do is begin to build the wall again. We need to end catch and release, and we need to get control of our border and our sovereignty and push people toward the ports of entry and not between, where they're tearing apart family businesses, cattle are being killed, ranches are being torn apart, houses. It's a bad situation, and we need to stop it. I have a problem with people that their first decision they make to come to America is to break the law. We want everybody to realize the American dream, but do it lawfully. Yeah. And that's what's happening down there. And unless you see it, you cannot believe it.
So you mentioned ranchers, and that's actually something I'd like to just touch upon, the public safety aspect of it. That's something a lot of people might not even conceive of. They just assume people cross the border, and then, at least the narrative is that they go work or something like that. Can you talk a bit about the public safety?
Well, the problem is a lot of these people are not coming here to work. Okay, it's not Mexicans per se. We've got people from everywhere coming across our border: China, Russia, Iran, you name it. They're coming across the border. We've had almost 1 million people, confrontations, what we call them, the first half of this year. We're heading toward 2 million people coming across our border. We don't know who they are, where they are, what their mindset is, or whatever. And wouldn't you think in that 2 million there might be some bad people? So it's a total safety issue. It's a sovereignty issue, and law enforcement's overwhelmed with it. And this administration is doing nothing. We got Vice President Harris is the border czar. Okay, I hate that word. And she didn't get down there for 93 days. And when she went to the border, she went to El Paso. She didn't go to the McAllen sector, okay, where all the action is. She, being the border czar, has said that ICE is like the KKK, and she supports defunding law enforcement. That's a bad combination, isn't it? And President Biden hadn't even been down there, for crying out loud. So it's out of control because this administration's letting it be out of control. President Trump, we slowed it down. It was totally organized. It was pretty good shape. Biden inherited that. All he had to do was do what Trump did, but he doesn't want Trump to get any credit, so he'll sell out America. And that doesn't include the sex trafficking, the drug trafficking that's going through there. The drug dealers run the whole place down there. And the drugs coming across our border are going to decimate a whole generation of young people in this country. So we're losing that too. So it's a disaster, and it's right in his hands, and he's at fault.
From your perspective of being actually inside Congress and being able to interact with other congressmen and women, what is the general perception of Congress people in terms of the border? Do they understand what's happening, these triple-digit increases in, let's say, sex criminals crossing the border, or do they not believe it? What's their mentality?
If you go down there, you see it, okay? But Democrats don't want to go down there because once they see it, they're going to have to lie about it if they don't know there's a problem. Most of Republicans have gone down there. Like I say, I've been down there every year. It's kind of natural for me to go down there. But the Democrats don't go down there. And Kamala Harris hadn't gone down there. So they don't want to see it because it's bad, and then they have to talk about it.
So, well, one question I have is, even if you don't go down there, like I have not been down there. Well, I was last year, but even if you just look at the statistics, it seems like it's gotten worse.
Well, no, it's totally gotten worse.
So why is it that they're ignoring? Are they
because their leadership, Biden and Harris, don't say we don't have a problem, and they just buy into that. They know it's a disaster. This is going to be one of the things that will defeat them in 2022 and get the House and Senate back, is the lack of border security and the lack of doing your job to secure the border and the sovereignty of our country. So I can't speak from the heart of a Democrat that won't admit it, that won't go down there. But if they do, they're going to have a problem telling you that there's no problem.
Yeah. A few people I've interviewed have told me that potentially one reason that they're allowing this to happen is, of course, the public image aspect of it. Yeah. The fact that the media allows it, that they don't cover it. But then there might be the fact that these people people who cross the border overwhelmingly register as Democrats eventually, or their kids do.
They think that. And we hear that all the time. They're all going to vote Democrat. First of all, if that's a reason to let illegal people in, have illegal behavior, that's a crime to me. Okay? We're a land of law. All right? Now, if the people that are coming up here for jobs are going to think like conservatives do. They just want to work. Those are coming up to blow up our country and to do bad things. I don't know how they're going to vote, if they even care about voting. Okay, but the idea that they're letting these people in, and it is their thought that they'll all be Democrats one day, to me is a crime. That's breaking the law. And if that's all you care about and you're selling your country out over this period of time, that's a bad mindset. And they need to be defeated, and they will be.
So besides the upcoming midterm elections and the 2024 presidential race, I noticed Texas is taking some concrete steps to take this matter into their own hands. They recently requested help from other states. They're building their own wall. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, Texas is Texas, right? Yeah. We do things. We don't ask for a lot of help. Other states are sending some of their National Guard down to help our Border Patrol, which is great. Governor Abbott's done the right thing in setting aside X amount of dollars to begin the wall, getting the private sector engaged. It's important that we stop this. Private sector very much wants to be involved in this to protect their businesses, to protect their employees, and protect their families. So Texas has taken charge, fix the wall, build the wall, and begin to get some control with the border that the federal government ought to be doing.
Do you? When I read that Texas is taking the matters into their own hands, to me I felt like, man, what do I even pay taxes for if the federal government is not taking care of this?
Well, that's a good reason. Why do you pay? What are you getting for your taxes? You get no return on investment right now. Okay, there's 320 million customers of America paying taxes, and they're getting no return on investment. We're not supporting the military. We've got bad infrastructure. We've got no law and order on the border. And look at what happened in our main streets, killing people. Look what happened in Chicago last week. I mean, it's a war zone. Okay, they're inner cities. We got open borders. That's what you're getting for your taxes. That's called 0% return on investment in business.
Oh, and you know that's something else that a lot of people overlook because they think that this problem is a Texas problem, or maybe an Arizona problem, right? The border problem. No. But actually, people once they cross the border, once they're in America, it's a highway to any other state.
We have 50 states, and they're all border states right now. Because these people are coming in here, we're putting them on airplanes. We don't know where they're heading. We're putting them up at Fort Bliss. We're putting them in downtown Dallas. They're going all over the country at night, dropping people off, and so every state is a border state. So those people think it's just Texas or Arizona or New Mexico or whatever. They're learning really quickly. This show is coming to your town soon.
Now, if you would like to go deeper into what is actually happening at the U.S. southern border, including if you'd like to get access to those clips that we watched earlier from Charlotte earlier in the episode, I'll throw the links to all that into the description box below this video for you to check out. And now lastly, I would like to make a small announcement similar to what I announced in the previous episode. If you still like to watch television, I mean like, the set-top box, over-the-air, cable, satellite, sitting with your family around the couch style television, then you are in luck because our show, Facts Matter, can now be watched on television over on NTD. NTD is an awesome cable news network. They're actually a sister media to us, to the Epoch Times, and they report the news in a solid, professional manner without all the spin and all the false narratives that you get with other cable news networks. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, they're a phenomenal alternative to the CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, CBS monopoly on the television news. And now you can watch our program, Facts Matter, on their 7 p.m. Eastern time slot. Now, they are still growing. Currently, you can watch NTD over the air in 32 different states, but they also have coverage on Roku and Apple TV as well, so you can watch them over Wi-Fi. If you'd like to see how you can watch NTD, whether it's carried by your cable provider or not, you can do so over at ntd.com/TV. I'll throw a link to that in the description box below. And if you check it out, you type in your zip code, and if you find that you don't get access to NTD, consider giving a call to your cable provider. They actually do listen to these kinds of requests. Again, the link will be right there, or you can go on over to ntd.com/TV. Now, lastly, if you haven't already, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already in order to get this type of honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed while YouTube still allows it. Also, if you're already subscribed, hit that notification bell so you can be notified of any new videos as we release them. Also, if you have an Instagram account, follow me at Epoch Times Roman. I post behind-the-scenes research as well as spicy memes. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed and stay free.